Can't hear you.
Oh, oops, we were all muted up here. Sorry. So I call this meeting to order at 5:30. Can you please take roll?
President Smalley?
Here.
Vice President Lang?
Here.
Director Largate?
Here.
Director Hill?
Here.
Director Polk?
Here.
All right. We have everyone in attendance.
And I do need to note, there's no one in the room with me.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any changes to the closed session agenda?
No.
Okay. And this portion.
No, wait.
Actually, yeah, we do have a change. I'd like to take items B and C off due to time constraints we have a lot going on in the closed session and we don't need to discuss those items before our next meeting. There's nothing pending that we need to do with those. So I'd like to take those off just for time constraints.
So that was C and what?
B and C.
B and C.
B and C.
D, okay.
No, B and
B.
C.
E.
B is in Bob and C is in Cat.
C and B.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Barbara.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. This portion of the meeting is for oral communication regarding items on the closed session and in the purview of the district. I see no one in the room and we have no one online. All right. I think we can adjourn to closed session. The meeting, I have 6:31 as the time. Can you please call roll?
Yes. President Smalley?
Here.
Vice President Lang?
Here.
Director Largate?
Here.
Director Hill?
Here.
Director Polk?
Here.
All right. We have everyone.
All right. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Right. Okay, so this portion of the meeting is reserved for oral communication from the public.
Point of order. Report out of closed session.
Oh, correct. I'm sorry. Correct. All right. So if we report out of closed session, so the actions taken, we had a roll call vote of a unanimous vote to appoint Jen Torres as our acting general manager. Okay. All right. All right. So this portion of the meeting is reserved for oral communication for the public, for anything in the purview of the district and not on the agenda. Do we have anyone who wishes to comment? You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Ron Richardson. I live in the area Hidden Glen near kind of close to the Henry Cowell State Park. I'd like to ask how many people who are here tonight are here out of concerns about the proposed development called the Haven. Okay.
I'm sorry, sir. I couldn't hear you.
How many people in the audience have concerns about a new development proposal called the Haven?
Oh, yes. I just didn't hear what the concern was. Sorry. Thank you.
So I'm a homeowner in that area and wanted to just lay out that there are many, many people in the community at this point who we've had several meetings so far. We had a meeting with Monica Martinez and about 100, maybe 120 people attended that meeting next in the library in Scotts Valley. And we're very concerned about a project that is in early stages of development of proposal. We're not sure if it will be green lighted and actually go through. It's squeezed in one day before it would not have been able to pass, and using something called the builder's remedy. And In terms of water, I realize you don't have control over the entire process. It's very complicated, but we think it doesn't make sense to us, at least. We're really trying to conserve water. To our knowledge, or to my knowledge, there may be some people who still are waiting for pipes to be returned to operating condition after the CZU fire in 2020. And I don't know if there's more production or available water, but it seems like adding almost 160 buildings to that area in terms of water is potentially a big demand on the water resources. So we're concerned about that. And it seems like this would require the expansion of the water district for maybe 160 units, 157. They also have a proposal of an 18,000 square foot building in the middle of the development that we don't really know what that might be. So besides the environmental and traffic concerns and issues about quality of life and all these other things and evacuation in case of fire, we would urge the water district to give it serious thought. And if you have control over approving that, give it some thought, and also try to become aware of the issues in the community that are surrounding that. I have a one-page summary that I'd like to present or offer. I'm not sure, is that okay to give that to somebody here? And then if you want to, you can, I didn't bring a stack of them, but it gives sort of a summary of our concerns. And I think we have very legitimate concerns. So it doesn't seem like a NIMBY issue. It's bigger than that, and it has to do with other issues. So in terms of water, it would certainly consume a lot. Unless you're having a lot more water available, I would be very concerned. So thank you very much.
Mhm.
And I noticed there was one person who was not here for this topic. I should have let her go first. Maybe we let her go now. Would that be okay?
This, Mark, did you have something to say to that? I see your hand raised. Or do you want to wait till the end?
I will wait until the end if it's appropriate.
Okay.
Yes, Lorraine Palmer, resident of Boulder Creek. And I don't know if this is when I should be speaking or not. I'm here to support the increase in the rate assistance program. And I don't know if you want me to speak now or at a different time.
It's
It's not on the agenda, so.
But it's not on the agenda, so you're welcome to speak now.
Okay. I'm here to support that in progress right now. I think it's being considered. I just want to explain what can happen to people if they are in the middle of their career and they get ill and they're single, like myself. You can be in a situation where you really struggle to pay your water bill. And I think it's really easy for people not to understand that there are a few people in our community who are really, really struggling because there isn't a safety net. If you happen to own your home, if you have equity, if you have 401k, if you have assets that you can't get assistance and struggling to pay your bills, it's a real thing that happens to people. And when you did the rate increase, you did not publish what happens if a person's using 1 unit. All your information you put out was 2 units or more. So the people who voted on the rate increase did not have the information. What happens to people who use 1 unit of water or less than 1 unit of water? If you use less than 1 unit of water, you're paying the basic fee for over 2 months. You're paying it twice for 1 unit of water or over 3 months for 1 unit of water. You start paying per gallon more than anybody else in the entire valley when you are struggling to pay your bills. So the rate assistance program is much needed. I think even more than what's being presented at the time. But there seems to be, sometimes people don't understand how you can meet this assistance, but you look at it differently and think about how much people are paying per gallon of water when they are conserving and using very little water. They're paying much more than other people. So I'm here to support that program to please increase the amount that you offer for assistance to people who are elderly or disabled or very low income people in the valley who really need the assistance.
Thank you. And thank you for coming to the admin committee. And I think in the budget later in the agenda, there is some money set aside that you'll see. So, thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak?
On a different topic?
Oh, whatever you would like, yeah.
Okay. Good evening, board members. My name is Stephanie Morse, and I live on Worth Lane in unincorporated Santa Cruz County. And I am here to speak on behalf of those in support of those against the Haven project on Graham Hill Road. And please bear with me, my husband and I just got back from the marriage of our daughter to a Cal firefighter. So I've got notes here. So bear with me as I read from my notes. I had a few minutes to kind of get them together here. So the San Lorenzo Valley watershed, as I did a little research, it's listed by the federal government and the state government as impaired by several pollutants, as well as being dangerously low currently for the residents that it provides for in this community. And the current residential usage is continuously going up. It's also in this area and everywhere in the country impacted, the water is impacted because of global warming. And residents who have not, also in this area, residents who have not yet had their water restored to their properties from the CZU fires. With a high density project like the Haven, I have some questions for this board to consider moving forward. The first question I have is, will FEMA commit to funds promised for the CZU fire damage? I looked on FEMA's current website, and surprisingly what I found was FEMA's strategic plan moving forward for 2022 through 2026 under President Trump's administration. The strategic plan has been removed from the agency's website, including cuts both current and future in federal grants for disaster impacted states. And this also includes emergency preparedness response and legal aid specifically for low income people in the low income bracket. My second question for the board is also, will you hold the developer accountable for any new sources of water or additional costs if needed for our community based on the consumption that this developer will be using? And for the FEMA's information, this came from harvardlaw.edu website. So those are the questions that I'm posing to you, and I appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the room?
Hello, my name is Lynn Chacon, and I've lived in Scotts Valley for 13 years. From the day my family relocated to Santa Cruz County, we were made aware of two things: the need to protect the sandhills ecosystem and conserve our limited water. My kids took field trips and helped remove invasive plant species that threatened the indigenous ones. Their classes tracked mountain lion migration back and forth from Henry County. We learned stadium lights were not allowed at the high school because they killed Mount Herman June beetles. We were often reminded that we were in a drought. Neighbors with rain barrels gave me dirty looks every time I had the sprinklers running. So I quickly changed my behavior, and the kids even tried to shorten their showers to 2 minutes. We are Santa Cruzans now. We don't want to surrender our wild Santa Cruz or more of our scarce water to get a few affordable and name-only units put up in the county. When the Graham Hill property was sold, friends assured me that the land was on protected sandhill land. And it was a wildlife corridor and a buffer for Henry Cow, so that nothing was going to be approved. SLB's water supply was stretched as it was, even before the CDU fire damaged storage tanks, the 5 Mile pipeline, and others. But then came the infamous builder's remedy law, which has enabled a developer to submit an application for the Haven, a high-density 157-unit development on 40 acres of endangered protected habitat. The Haven will create waste, sound, and light pollution, require the removal of 600 trees, block mountain lion migration, decimate rare species, and further stretch scarce water resources. Those of us on SLB water are not happy about the prospect of over 150 new homes being annexed into an already taxed system, especially when some residents have not been allowed to rebuild their homes or are still without water since the fire. You are in the business of providing water, we get that. And you're inclined to do so where possible. But should you, in this case, the Haven's developers will destroy that sandhill site, strain our water supply, make their money, and leave. They don't care about the protection of the ecosystem or the scarcity of the water, but we do. The kids who plucked invasive plants, trapped mountain lions, and shortened their shower times do. And I believe you guys do too. You are under no obligation to extend your boundary of service. If you enable that development, what will we tell our kids? That an endangered ecosystem and scarce resource was no longer worthy of our protection because Sacramento mandated affordable housing? Builder's remedy allows a developer to bypass some restrictions, but it doesn't require us to abandon our principles. We ask that the board not facilitate the Haven or any development that destroys endangered habitat, requires expensive infrastructure, and strains limited resources. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were getting up to comment. Do you have any more comments that are in here in the room? No. I think, Mark, you wanted to address what would be.
I do.
Okay. I
Just,
see one. I'll go to Mark and then I'll go to Jim.
okay,
Go
just
ahead, Mark.
briefly. As the board president, I do want to comment on the Haven project. The Water District has not received a request from the developer on this project. If and when the district does get that request, we will evaluate it, and the board will discuss that. And since this is not on the agenda, we can't discuss it further this evening. At the appropriate time, if that does come in, we will evaluate further. Just wanted to let the general public know that we haven't received anything. Thank you.
All right. See no more comments in the room. We're going to move to online. Jim Mosier.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Jim Mosier from Felton, ratepayer, and I'm the facilitator for the Friends of San Lorenzo Valley Water. And I just wanted to highlight that we had submitted a letter in support of the rate assistance program. That's in the agenda with 50 signatures. It's something that we consider a very high priority. Both the administration committee and the budget and finance committee, on which I sit, have moved forward with it. In principle, we weren't able to discuss the details in the budget and finance committee. So I think there's still a little more work that may need to be to finalize what that program looks like. But I wanted to highlight the support of so many people who think that we need to be helping our neighbors here who are facing difficult financial circumstances. And it's our role as a community to help those who need that kind of help, because it could be us next. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any other hands going up online. So I think that we can move move on to the agenda of the unfinished business. I see none. And I'm sorry, I gotta scroll down. Yeah. So moving to new business, we're gonna move to the general manager recruitment, and who's presenting that?
Um,
Oh, am I looking at the wrong? No, I'm right.
Right,
Okay.
a letter.
I am-
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
It-
Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Alina,
Yeah.
I put this memo together and was proposing to present it. And then it's fairly straightforward and quick. The district has been seeking a general manager for some time now. Most recently, in October this past year, we hired John Kunkel as our interim GM. Mr. Kunkel's been working for us successfully for the last 6 months, but received a request for his services in a city very close to where he lives, which is out in the Central Valley. He said it was an opportunity that he couldn't pass up. So yesterday was his last day with the district. The district is actively seeking a permanent general manager. Along those lines, we started back in September, internal posting on our website and received very few applications. In January, we expanded that and posted on several recruitment websites. At that point, we received about 25 resumes. We interviewed 2 applicants. However, the board could not reach an acceptable salary with one of the candidates, and we could not reach consensus on moving forward with the second. In response to that, the board in March of this year sought the services of a recruitment firm, Regional Government Services. They're a firm that we know because through other work that we've been doing with them, including obtaining contract services for our finance manager. We initiated a recruitment effort with them. They opened the job search April 4th for a month, therefore closes at the May 4th. So far, they've received at least 12 applications. And what I'm hearing is at least several qualified candidates. They're going to be reviewing all of the candidates within the coming week and then get back to us with recommendations on who they feel we should be interviewing. With that, any further comments from the board?
Bob?
No.
No?
Oh,
Jeff?
yep.
Brian? I don't have any as either.
Okay.
Do you have any comments yourself, Mark?
No, I just wanted to state that, but we do need to seek, does the public have any comments or questions on this item?
I see no one in the room here. Do we have any comments online or hands
No
online?
hands up.
No, and I see no hands up online. I think we can move on to the ad hoc committee formation for negotiations. And I believe Jen, you're presenting that.
Yes. Okay, so in May of 2023, the district entered into agreements with the classified and management units, or unions, I should say. And as part of each agreement, the district commissioned a salary study, which was just completed and presented to the board. To keep the negotiation process moving, it was recommended that the board president form a labor negotiations ad hoc committee. And so staff is recommending that the board president appoint an ad hoc committee to keep this going.
All right.
Any questions?
Director Foltz.
That would be subject to a ratification by the board. Correct? Like we do with other committees.
Oh,
A vote of the board to
Yeah,
approve.
yeah.
To approve having the committee?
yeah.
that correct? Is that your understanding, Mark?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Since you're presenting this, or you're supposed to be appointing Mark, do we go through and comment first, or would you like to make a suggestion and then comment?
In the past, during I'm sorry, it was a different effort. I would like to make a suggestion of having the admin committee, currently comprised of Director Hill and Director Lang, to form this ad hoc committee. So that's a suggestion. So I'd like to hear from the rest of the board about
Okay.
that.
All right, Director Largay?
I think that makes a world of sense. This seems like an administrative responsibility and would be well executed by that team.
Director Hill?
I have no objections.
Okay. Director Foltz?
Does everybody have time?
Yes, I do.
No, I have to get to a conference.
I'm just asking.
Okay.
No, I
I
definitely
know
have
people
time.
have, they have lives. I just
Yeah.
want to.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go on a big statement. No.
No.
I was like, you had
I'm there, time
a
to
list of
serve.
reasons. What? I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Yes, I have time to
Excellent.
devote to this.
Excellent.
I have obligations, but they're not continuous in nature, so I can squeeze things in easily.
Excellent. I always like to get people to sign up publicly.
Yes.
Works for me.
All right, I also have, no objection to that. So I think we could go out to public comment on that. Again, we have no one in the room, and I see no hands raised online. So do we have a motion?
I move that we appoint Jeff Hill and Elena Lang to an ad hoc committee for labor negotiations.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, roll call vote.
Okay. President Smalley,
Yes.
Vice President Lang,
Yes.
Director Hill,
Yes.
Director Largay,
Yes.
Director Polk.
Yes.
All right, unanimous.
All right, we can move on to 10C. We have AB 2561 policy.
You will take this one. I'm Heather. Good evening, board. I'm Heather Ipoletti, Senior Advisor with Regional Government Services. I am a finance consultant, the district. The proposed action before you tonight is to adopt a resolution approving a proposed AB 2561 policy and procedures. AB 2561 was introduced to address the issue of job vacancies in local government, which adversely affects the delivery of public services and employee workload. The bill was enacted into law and is codified as Government Code Section 3502.3. In summary, policy sets forth the requirements of AB 2561. Those requirements include the requirement to annually hold a public hearing where staff shall present information regarding the status of vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts, and identify any necessary changes to policies, procedures, and recruitment activities may lead to obstacles in the hiring process. This presentation must occur prior to the Board of Directors' adoption of the budget for the district. The district must allow the recognized employee organizations for each bargaining unit at the district to make presentations during the public hearing concerning vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts. And if vacancies within a single bargaining unit meet or exceed 20% of authorized full-time positions in that bargaining unit, upon request of the recognized employee organization or that bargaining unit, the district must provide additional information during the public hearing. With the anticipated adoption of this policy and procedures, Staff is planning on holding the first AB 2561 public hearing at the May 15th board meeting. That concludes my presentation.
All right, we'll start with you, Director Foltz.
I'm always, it's always instructive to see what kind of regulations the state government can come up to micromanage local governments. I mean, I understand this is not optional and it's law and all the rest of it, but boy, we as a district are regulated pretty heavily, including being classified as an urban water district, which brings all sorts of regulation with it. It's too bad that the state government can't trust its local governments to do their job and the general manager to do its job. But that said, we are where we are.
All right, Director Hill.
This, to me, seems like yet another layer of bureaucracy, but we have no choice. I'm echoing, in short, Director Foltz's comments.
Okay, Director Largay.
I recommend that we integrate this hearing or whatever exactly it is into our regular meetings so that we have it as part of routine business.
Yes.
I can't imagine it will be well attended or by the public or anything.
So what you're saying is you don't want us to have a special meeting just for this.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, President Smalley.
Yes, a couple questions. Who from the staff would be taking the lead on this May 15th meeting and a meeting memo agenda?
The district's HR specialist.
Okay, all right. And given that the HR specialist isn't in attendance tonight, are they?
Not to my
No.
knowledge.
Okay, then are they aware of this?
Yes, fully aware. The
Okay.
unions have also been notified,
Okay.
and staff is working with RGS HR team to make sure that the proper presentation is done so that they have a good starting point for future years.
So then would our HR specialist be presenting then at the May 15th meeting?
That is the plan.
Okay. And since the board has not heard from the HR specialist about this yet, and this is the first I'm being aware of it as the board president, is May 15th a meeting too soon?
It is not.
Okay.
What we did was we've actually been working on this since January because
Okay.
certain notifications needed to go out, and we also it's not, though it's this presentation is part of your regular meeting.
Mhm.
It actually has to be noticed, and the process has to be in accordance to the public hearing requirements.
Okay.
So there are special noticing requirements that have to be done, and your board
Okay.
secretary actually got a little bit of training, as in how to conduct a public hearing. So there's actually been a lot of work over the last 4 months to
Okay.
make sure that this goes without a hitch.
Okay. All right. Well then, on a personal note, I wish we had known about it sooner as a board, but I understand you're bringing it to us now and letting us know about it. Okay. Okay. That's all the questions I have.
All right, I don't really have any comment. It seems like we don't have a choice. So we have to do this. I think we can move to public comment. I don't see anyone in the room. Anyone online? I don't see any hands going up. All right, do we have a motion? Oh,
Nobody wants to make it.
All right, I will then. I move the board adopt the resolution approving the proposed AB 2561 policy and procedures establishing the framework and requirements for holding public hearings and reporting on the district's workforce vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts in compliance with the Assembly Bill 2561.
Second,
I have roll call, please.
Yes, President Smalley,
A begrudging yes.
Vice President Lane,
Yes.
Director Holt,
No editorial, yes.
Director Hill,
yeah,
Director Largay.
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we can move on to 10D, the proposed budget. It gets back to Heather.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen for a PowerPoint. Minimize a lot of little screens here. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. Okay. All right. Good evening, board. The budget that's going to be the part of the budget that's going to be presented tonight is actually just I'm going to call it the non-capital budget. In April, I took the entire budget to the Budget and Finance Committee. They had concerns about the proposed capital improvement program. There's a lot there. They're concerned about the timing and whether staff can actually execute that plan. So what I've done is I've sent that CIP kind of back to staff to go, is this a workable CIP plan? They have gotten me some changes. And so that CIP plan will be presented to you at the May 15th meeting, along with ideally a proposed revision to the reserve policy that the Budget and Finance Committee is also looking at. And my goal is to incorporate it then proposed budget all together for you. But this meeting, I'm presenting I'm calling it again, the non-capital budget. The public process, I'll say, started back in March with a budget 101 presentation to the Budget and Finance Committee committee. In April 23rd, I presented the budget. That's where they gave me that feedback that I just mentioned. And then tonight, I'm presenting the non-capital budget. On May 15th, I'll pull it all together to include this CIP and a summary, as well as a working capital and reserve analysis. And my goal, ambitious as it is a proposed budget adoption on June 5th. Okay. Okay. I'm going to start with the revenue. You're a water district, 88% of your revenue is directly related to your water rates, with 48% coming from water usage fees and 40% from fixed charges. This is the overall presentation of the non-capital revenue. Some of the revenue assumptions include fiscal for the water sales and flat rate charges. The assumption is that the consumption will be the same as fiscal year 24-25, with an annual 7% increase in rates, no change to the customer base. Sewer charge assumption is an annual 4% increase in rates with no change to the customer base. Property tax, I went back and looked at the last 4 years, and what I've got is a 5% annual increase. And then the assessment district revenue projections agree with the consultant prepared annual report, with the Lempico assessment district ending, and fiscal year 25-26 will be the last year of revenue for that district. Investment earnings I'm assuming decline in interest rate as well as a decline in funds invested. I'm and no invested unspent bond proceeds are anticipated. Mobile service lease fees. It's estimated that August of 26, the district will begin receiving an additional $17,000 per year for the new lease. And the current lease has an annual 3% increase. The rental income, while both leases are looking to expire, I'm assuming that those leases will be renegotiated and continue through June 30th of 27 with annual rent increases in accordance with the current contracts. And then this is probably the big change of the night. Based on the recommendation from the Budget and Finance Committee, in this proposed budget, there is additional funding proposed for the rate assistance program. The increase is an additional $5 per month annual increase in the benefit. So an additional $5 in 25-26 and an additional $5 in 26-27, plus increased funding for 30 additional participants. That kind of sums up my revenue assumptions, as well as introducing the changes to the rate assistance program. Before I move on to expenditures, did you have any questions here?
Anyone have any questions right now?
I'll wait till the end.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you. Then I'll move on to expenditures. I'm presenting here expenditures by department as well as by operating expense. Your two largest departments are water supply and distribution and operations and distribution. With a large chunk as in admin, but I will, say this, admin has some expenses that are, I'll say, agency-wide, such as insurance, and that is what's boosting up that administration portion. Operating expenses, 68% of your operating expenses are salaries and benefits. I look at most governments as you're a service business that requires staff. And then your next highest expense is your contracted services. Overall expense assumptions for salaries, wages, and benefits are per MOU terms with annual step increases up to top step. New employees start at step 4. COLA was assumed 5% at July 1 and 3% July 1 of 25 and 3% July 1 of 26. There are a number of vacant management positions to be filled. I'm assuming that they will be filled early in 25-26. No increase in staffing level. Pension in accordance to CalPERS annual valuation reports. No change, typo, sorry. No change in the organization chart from fiscal year 24-25. And compensation study impacts have not been included. I calculated overtime and standby wages using a 4-year average. And then the operational budgets were provided to me by the managers of the departments. That's why you see them surrounding you right now. They are here just in case you have any questions, but they were budgeted for specific items, and in some of them, an increase of a 3 to 5% adjustment for inflation. And then as I go department by department, I will provide you with little notes that are more department specific. Before I go into the details of the department budgets, Does anybody want to ask any questions before I move on? Or do we want to just wait till the end?
I had one quick question, Heather, and this
Yeah.
is mostly for curiosity. So why would a new employee start at step 4 instead of step 1 typically?
It's usually when an employee starts, it's usually a form of a negotiation happens. And to encourage that employee to take the job, you're wanting to make sure that they're making more than what they're currently making. And on average, it usually starts at step 4 instead of step 1. And so that is my assumption.
Thanks.
You can start them at step 1. I'm just making the assumption that they are not going to start at step 1. They're going to start at step 4.
Yep. Thank you.
Just an assumption. Okay. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. I'll move on. Sorry, I can't see your faces. I'm sorry.
No, I don't see anyone eager to talk.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the feedback. All right. This is a slide that was included in your staff report that shows the operating expenses by department as well as by general type. And I'm going to go into this. Administration. It assumes the filling of the vacant general manager position. This budget also includes 100% of the retiree medical benefits that are currently paid to the retired employees. The current year has some one-time expenses, an HR investigator in there, as well as some of the rate study expenses included in the estimate to close. Operating expenses, and the current year estimate to close includes a purchase of a new desk for the board secretary, and next year it includes the purchase of 2 new computers as well as the copier lease. And general administration expenses, the estimate to close includes the $42,000 of arbitrage paid. No arbitrage was included in the proposed budget. I want to jump to a slide here. One item that was changed from your staff report was in insurance. I had spoken or communicated with your insurance agent or insurance provider, and the number that I had included in the staff report was that number. Just this week, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, maybe it was even yesterday, but they provided me a revised number. And so it was about a $20,000 difference. So I have gone ahead and included that in the numbers presented tonight. So the proposed number of $285,496 for the insurance is a number from your insurance provider. And then the 2627 number is a 10% increase. Also included in your line, your insurance line, is claims paid. I'm proposing for tracking purposes and better clarity, I am proposing that the district actually add an additional account to their chart of accounts for claims, and that line be separated out. And so I'm estimate to close for the current year is 50,000, and I'm proposing 50,000 for the next 2 years as well. So that my point earlier was the large amount of administration costs, the department, and you'll see that 335,000 and 364,000 are included in that. Insurance is a large part of that administration budget. Okay. If there's no questions for administration, I'm going to move on to finance, assuming questions will come at the end. Please interrupt me if you do have a question. Finance budget. It assumes the filling of the vacant finance manager position early in the fiscal year. The current year estimate to close includes contracted finance services, as well as additional audit services because the district will be undergoing a single audit for the recognized FEMA expenses that were incurred a couple years ago. A single audit is based on when the expenses were incurred, not necessarily when you get reimbursement from that federal agency. Ongoing expenses and contracted and professional services includes the annual audit, InfoSend utility billing, the Springbrook annual software costs, meter services, bond counsel, as well as the cost of the website. Operating expenses, fiscal year 25-26 includes the purchase of a new laptop, desk chair, and supplies for the new finance director, as well as a new desk for customer service in fiscal year 26-27. And then general and administration costs includes bill postage, increased training, as well as water conservation rebates. I'm going to move on to engineering. And okay, engineering, no additional staff proposed. The contracted and professional services includes hydraulic model, and then the general and administrative expenses are primarily membership dues. Operations and distribution. The recently vacated operations manager was allocated 40/60 between operations, distribution, and water supply and treatment. This person was earning at top step and receiving increased benefits, which are no longer available to new staff. The assumption is that the replacement will start at step 4 and receive current benefits. Assumptions also for the other lines are a 3 to 5% inflationary increase. This is a budget that hasn't been, I'll say, well documented over the years, and I'm hoping that with increased notes that we can truly document what exactly goes. I mean, why I have the detail, like for the finance budget, we know exactly what professional service is going to happen every year. This department isn't necessarily documented in such a way, and I'm not sure it may need to be more of a flexible budget, I'm going to call it, where some things happen and it has to be dealt with. But many of the accounts were an estimate to close was done, and then that 3 to 5% inflationary increase was done. The environmental budget right now does have a vacant staff. When fully staffed, this department has 2. One staff member vacated the position in early July. Increases between fiscal year 24 and 25 and the proposed years is the assumption that this position will be filled early in the new year. The contracted and professional services includes grant writing, Olympia broom monitoring, probation tank restoration, Olympia conservation area land trust, the Olympia Habitat Conservation Plan endowment contributions, and a conjunctive use EIR. Operating expenses are an increase in fiscal year 26-27 is an EIR for that conjunctive use filing fee. And then the general and administrative expenses includes renewing water conservation education materials, membership and dues for Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network Association of Environmental Professionals, and a Salmonoid Restoration Federation. The sewer budget includes State Water Resources Control Board permits and operating expenses. And in maintenance, it includes leach field and riser maintenance. And then in water supply and treatment, there has been a vacant field services coordinator for much of the year. Increase between fiscal year 24-25 and the proposed years is the assumption that this position will be filled early in the new year. Contracted professional services includes an annual Title 22 sampling scheduled for May of 25. Funds added to fiscal year 26-27 to cover the triannual lead and copper study. Your operating expenses includes funds for fiscal year 26-27 to cover that triannual lab audit. And then maintenance, a reduced budget for 26-27 due to lower projected vehicle maintenance costs, with the assumption that the purchase of 2 new vehicles will be approved. And then general and administrative is increased training costs proposed for both fiscal years. Other expenses include the investment in San Margarita Groundwater Association. I received the fiscal year 25-26 figures from the association, and I assumed a 3% increase thereafter. And then the debt, principal and interest are per amortization schedules. A good question came up in the Budget and Finance Committee meeting about principal. It's not really an expense. I agree. That was a great question. That's actually hits the balance sheet. Except your budget is not meant to agree to your financial statements. It is more of a show of your use of resources, and principal is a use of resources. So that's why I have detailed it out here, and it is considered an expense. In reality, it is a use of resources. In summary, I have net non-capital. I have a increase in working capital for 25-26 of a little over 3 million, and same for 26-27. Again, all non-capital, and capital will be presented on the 15th. And my, again, VIP in summary, as well as detailed working capital and reserve on May 15th, with a plan for a proposed budget adoption on June 5th. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions, as well as I have the department managers there to assist with answering those questions.
All right, thank you so much, Heather. All right, Director Foltz, you want to start?
Sure. Heather, as always, technically sound, assumptions sound reasonable, and mechanically it all works. I have some comments, which I'm not sure that this is the right time. Or whether you want to go through questions first and then come back for comments? Because my comments will be more extended than questions.
We can do questions first and then come back.
So the only question I have right now, Heather, is are you planning on putting together a cash flow?
Yes,
right?
That's all. Yeah, I have a 5-year planned.
Excellent. And does that 5-year plan include little FEMA reimbursement, particularly in the next 2 years?
Not in the next 2 years. Thank you for bringing that up. That was going to be part of the CIP presentation, because I look at that as CIP revenue, but I will let the cat out of the bag. I worked with Aptum for a cash flow estimate from them. And while there's a small amount, we're talking very small coming in the next couple of years, the large amounts are not coming in until 27, 28.
I'll be surprised if they come in then.
That's what I've been told since, but
yeah, I hear it. I understand. I'm expecting they will not come in until 29.
Yeah,
California.
Yeah, I took what Aptum gave me. I looked at it based on the project plan and everything, and I even put another twist on it and made it more conservative than what Aptum gave me. So
Good.
I don't want the district in the same position they were for the last this biennium, I'll say, for 23-25, where a large amount was proposed and did not come in. So I have a large chunk coming in, but not till 27-28 outside of the biennium.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was my only question at this time.
Oh, okay. President Smalley, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. There was something in the memo about suggestions to lower the reserve amount.
That will be coming. I am still working with the Budget and Finance Committee on the reserve policy. And what they want to do is they've asked for additional analysis from me on our 10-year or the district's 10-year history of your working capital and cash balances, because they want to see how low over the last 10 years it got.
Okay.
And so, and they are looking at that, and
Right.
I actually have I'll say a conservative policy proposed for them.
Right.
And they are considering, based on information that I'll give them the meeting, possibly lowering it.
Okay.
But they are open to the idea of bond funding, but they would like to reduce it as much as possible. And they want to make sure that the timing of the capital projects is as realistic as it can get. And so there's about 3 different things in play with the committee at this point, and that is why I did not feel comfortable presenting the capital portion of the budget at this time.
Okay. So this reserve policy is linked to the capital.
Correct.
Okay. Even though in a lot of cases, the reserves are being used to fund budgeted, non-scheduled in response to most recently the floods that we had in 23. And prior to that, the CZU fire.
Right. I will say that it is linked to capital because it's a large number.
Right.
And therefore you take the working capital that's available, less reserve, there's not much left over. And therefore, if we want to have a CIP program, a bond would be required. Yes. And so that is how I'll say that it is linked.
I'm interested to see how we have been tapping reserves over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Great. Good.
I have that ready to go to the Budget and Finance Committee at their May meeting.
Okay, good. Again, I like the complete report. I like the succinctness that you're also able to put this into for somebody who has a non-financial background. Good. Thank you. That's the only question I have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Director Largay?
I don't have questions. I appreciate the presentation. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Hill?
I have only one comment, and that is that there's a lot of interesting and in some cases strange pronouncements coming out of Washington, D.C. And I've heard some people prattling away about whether FEMA should be on the chopping block or something like that. So we need to keep our eye out on that. And that's all I'm going to say, because I have no idea whether that's a realistic thing or not. But I've heard it several times in the last week or two. And so who knows?
Okay.
That would require us to make some rather drastic changes, I think.
Yeah. All right. I don't have any questions on this. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing it all together with the CIP projects and all that. So I think that we did have comments though. Remember that we do have to adjourn back to closed session, so keep that in mind on our time constraints. But Bob, you said you had some comments.
Yeah, some of the changes to FEMA might be to try to discourage people from using disasters as part of their capital improvement plan by deferring maintenance forever. I'd also like us to be mindful to use the term, at least at this point, debt financing versus bond. There are many different ways we could raise capital for capital projects. A bond is one of them. And I'd also like to see us use better language for our use of funds. We tend to conflate reserves and debt, and that's reserves to me are free cash that we can do anything we want with them. Debt typically involves assigning the money to projects, and it's not free cash that we can use any way we want, as in recovery from a disaster, as we did with CZU fire. Turning now to the numbers. So as I said, the numbers all tie together, but it's the implication of the numbers that troubles me from a policy point of view. I've heard from some community members that there's this flood of cash coming in from the rate increase, and therefore, we need to spend more. We need to spend more. If you look at the proposed budget for even or either fiscal year 25, 26, 27, or 26, 27, the numbers are even worse than they were for the previous 15 in terms of the money that's going to be available to us for capital projects. Historically, about 2/3 of the rate increase, the incremental money each year from the rate increase went towards operating expenses, leaving us 1/3 that we could apply to capital. This budget calls for 75% of the increase in revenue each year to go to operating expenses, leaving even less money available for capital projects. This is not a good trend, especially given the fact that for about a 30-year period, the district did very little in the way of capital projects. We are so far behind on our capital projects, it's not funny. So that's troubling, number one. Number two is if you look at the compound annual growth rate in expenses and revenue, they basically track, which again is consistent with the fact that we're not, the rate increase is not gaining anything. The rate study called for 50% of the money to be used for operating expenses, not 75%. And this is one of the reasons why I advocated so strongly that the board be forced to do a budget to match the rate increase so that the community knew that this kind of thing wasn't going to happen as it has happened in the past. So basically, we're just continuing to do what we've always done, which is take most of the money from the rate increase and not use it for capital projects, which was the big sales pitch that we always make to the community. It's very disappointing in that way. Now, the good news is, even though our fiscal year 24 operating expenses came in significantly higher than what was in the rate study, actually, the 24 expenses came in as if we were in fiscal year 25, because 25 actually went down substantially. We're actually tracking okay. It isn't until we get to June 27 that we actually start going over again. So I think here that, and I know the rest of the board probably doesn't like to hear this because I've said this now for 6 years running, but I'm going to keep saying it again because it's important for our community to understand that as a board, we're not being particularly good stewards of the money relative to the sales pitch that we give the community as to what the money is going to be used for. At the end of all of this, we're going to be stuck with about 3 million, especially after all the budget adjustments are going to be made post negotiations. We're going to be stuck with about 3 million a year in capital. That's our margin that we can use in operating expenses that we can use for capital projects. And we're going to need about 6 million a year just to stay current. If you look at our capital assets, their lifespan, and their cost to replace. And that was from the last time I did that calculation in 2021. It's surely higher than that now. So I mean, this is just a budget that's continue the way that we've always been doing things. There's no change made here to redirect more money to capital versus operating expenses. And until a board decides to take action on that, there will be no change, and we will not fulfill our obligation to the community to significantly improve our capital assets in a much faster pace than we are now. And if we think that grants are going to make up the difference, folks, the grants are going to be going away here pretty soon. California is not a favored target for Washington right now, and the state is severely in a fiscal crisis of its own. So if we get grants, that's great, but it can't be part of our capital improvement program as guaranteed money that we get every year. Anyway, I certainly at this point in time can't be supporting this budget when it comes back because of the fact that it continues the policy issues that don't get us any further ahead in our capital.
All right, thank you, Bob. We can move back through if we need any additional comments. President Smalley?
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Director Largay?
Sure. I guess just, reflecting on the remarks we just heard, I am profoundly concerned about what I have seen as the failure of the district to deliver on capital projects. And the principal reason why I support this budget is because I expect with adequate investment in the personnel, we will see more grant applications, more successful development of engineering designs, more successful management of contractors, and an acceleration of the implementation of the CIP, which is, in my opinion, in a poor state. And the personnel situation has been in turmoil and disarray for several years. And my hope is that with adequate resources and effective replacement of the general manager and then appropriate staffing levels, we'll get everything organized and be able to execute on these items. And specific with regard to grant funding of capital projects, as we've discussed before, Proposition 4 has enormous resources. I'm quite concerned of our grant pipeline not having new applications going in today to take advantage of those funds. That has $1 billion for this sort of work, climate resilient, water saving facilities. But it requires adequate administrative staff, adequate grant writing, and leadership and coordination of project information to get them into the proposals and then manage the grants once secured. And so I view this as a good investment that presumes that staff will deliver on it, and I hope that they have the wherewithal and capacity to do so.
Thank you for those comments. Director Hill?
So I intend to take the comments I've heard back to the Budget Finance Committee and discuss this stuff with Heather and see if we can't come up with some ways to tighten things up where necessary and move funds where appropriate for some of our capital projects. That's what we need to do. And maybe we don't have business as usual everywhere in everything we do. I don't know, but we'll take a look.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I guess I kind of saw also the rate increases so we could also debt finance. A big part of all of that is how I understood it. And just kind of the comments about grants, I think that California just got designated the fourth largest economy in the world. And I hope that we can continue to take care of ourselves as a state and we can keep applying to state funded grants. And yeah. But I will take comments from the public now. I don't see no one in the room. I have one hand online. Mark Dolson, go ahead.
Thanks. This is Mark Dolson, member of the Administration Committee. I just have a request for clarification. It wasn't clear to me. It seemed that Heather was basing this budget on what she said was the current org chart. I'm not sure what the current org chart is. I know that when John Kunkel presented to the admin committee in mid-April, he showed us an org chart that he said he was in the process of significantly revising. He didn't think that org chart was the appropriate one to go forward with. And in particular, he pointed to an open position in the environmental area that he thought should be upgraded substantially to a special projects manager. So if somebody could help me understand which org chart are we assuming, that would be appreciated. Thanks.
Heather, do you have an answer for that?
The org chart that is assumed is the current org chart, essentially the same org chart for 24-25, as the board has not approved any other revisions, and I was not aware. I know the board is talking about some possible revisions, and John mentioned some possible revisions possibly coming down the road. I took what the org chart that is current for 24-25, including the vacant positions.
All right. I see no further hands. And there was no vote on this. This was merely for discussion. Yes, Bob?
One quick comment. In the immortal words in business, hope is not a strategy.
Okay. I think we can move to the consent agenda. It was just board minutes on that, and we had scroll down, and we also had one letter of written communication. We had minutes.
Point of order.
Oh, go ahead.
We should probably ask if anybody wanted to pull anything from the consent agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to pull anything from the consent agenda? Mark, are you good? I can't see you. Oh, for some reason your video is not up. All right.
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So I think we can accept the consent agenda, and we do have to reconvene into closed session for one last item.
You know how long that'll be? I'm being asked.
I just think they said it was going to be pretty short. Barbara, do you know about how long we're going to need?
Jen?
Oh, Jen.
You got one item you wanted to continue discussing plus the other item.
Yeah. My guess is at least 30 minutes.
That would be my guess as well.
Okay.
All right. So we'll see everyone back here about 8:20. Closed session, and we have no reportable actions. I think we can adjourn the meeting at 8:29.
Okay, great.
Thank you, DTV.